Hello everybody, my name is Paji, and I am your supernatural shoutcaster from another world, VTuber, and part-time content creator who likes to talk about webtoons. And today is another day of my favorite series of content bits I've done recently, where I talk to you about why you should pick up a web story, or in this case, webtoon, every Wednesday night at 10 p.m. PST on twitch.tv/Pagia. And let's get started, shall we? So today's title is going to be one that I think is best expressed with the most evil force of good. And that's us being confused, because wait a minute, Paji, what are you saying? This is a very contradictory statement, no? And for that, I'm gonna have to say, yeah, it's definitely a very interesting combination of words. Think we like to call that a oxymoron. There we go, that's the word. But yeah, no, the most evil force of good is how I would describe the main character of today's title, and that's so odd, isn't it? And we'll dive into exactly how that works in a bit. But as a note, this is one of my favorite recent reads that I found over the last year. It's one that I've always been pushing off from reading, and it's one that I'm so glad I got to binge and completely consume in all its glory, as it's still being published right now, not quite finished. For some context, this is mainly of two genres. The first one is a historical fantasy-based world, just like a lot of isekais are, and it is an isekai, so yeah, I think that's kind of the generals of it. But what really makes this title shine is kind of the execution and the sort of individual take it has on these two very typical genres or aspects of this story. So let's meet the main character first to really get a grasp of this. This is Lloyd. This is our protagonist. This evil-looking, menacing guy who's laughing with a shovel over his neck, veins popping out. He is crazy. He looks completely crazy. And he is maybe a thug, but probably the most exploitative person you'll ever meet in a main character. Except kind of not. It's kind of confusing, but he's also a good guy. So it's like, what, we have all these different things going on. It's just like, what? Are you a good guy? Are you not? Am I cheering for you? Do I hate you? What's happening? And I don't know how to explain that, but I swear he's a good guy. Like, ignore the images, ignore how freaking crazy he looks, how much of a villain he looks like here. But okay, fine. He's not a completely good guy. Again, it's kind of like that though. So let's talk about today's title, The Greatest Estate Developer, featuring our villain, who looks like a villain, but our main character in the end, Lloyd Frontera. And for those of you who know this title, it's an absolute blast, right? Like, you have to chime in the comments or the chat here, like, at this time. Greatest Estate Developer is truly just a treasure in modern fantasy comedies. And I think it's really obvious from the art, but the expressions are top tier. So let's talk about what Greatest Estate Developer is about. First of all, it's about Lloyd Frontera. Not water, human scum. Which is what he's about, but also kind of not, which is always a very interesting thing to wonder when it comes to stories like this. It's like, you're telling me that he's a bad guy, but he's not? And I think that's one of my favorite dynamics to ever dive into in stories like this, because it's always fun to kind of pick apart, like, how the story will be created to make the main character think, or even be perceived as a terrible person, but their actions do speak louder than words, and eventually they are seen as something a little bit more than just some evil scum or the like. But yeah, no, he's actually not just human scum doing the thing, which is estate developing, right? The greatest estate developer. He's reincarnated. He is from a past life, and his main goal, get rich, live lazily, which honestly, damn, that's a mood. And so, he tries to go and do that in the course of the story, but the problem is the events of the story are dangerous. And he knows this because he's been reincarnated into the novel that he liked to read about, which is about Lloyd Frontera and Javier. Oh God, I'm so bad with names. But his assistant and butler, who is the original main character of the story. Now let's talk about Lloyd. So Lloyd is by far probably one of the most interesting things about this story. Besides the fact that it's a comedy, it's a fun story, it's lighthearted and whatnot. Lloyd Frontera is formerly known as Kim Soo-ho. And I think the 4 points that we can make is that he's scum. And even though he does some great things throughout the course of the story, because why would he be a main character if not? He's still scum. But if we think about it in contrast to the things that he does end up doing and what he resultingly does and how he does it, I mean, maybe he's not scum? Okay, let's simplify that. Maybe he's the best kind of scum. Oh, sorry, that didn't really tell you anything, did it? Okay, well, it's a good thing that was a joke slide. Jokes aside, Lloyd Frontera, formerly known as Kim Soo-ho, is a resident of Korea, or was a resident of Korea, who, in his current life, is a selfish noble, but now that he's reincarnated is a little bit differently. So that was kind of who Lloyd Frontera used to be. But now that Kim Soo-ho is reincarnated into him or been isekai'd into him, he's just a selfish noble who's trying to do things a little bit differently. And even though he's not trying to completely get rid of the fact that he is scum and he fully believes he's scum, he's, I guess, Korean now? Question mark? But basically, Kim Soo-ho, before he was Lloyd Frontera, was a lot more than just being kind of this scum, materialistic, lazy, noble-like character. He was, first of all, a struggling hard worker in Korea, an engineering student who worked very hard but was put through so many terrible tragedies. And so when he's reincarnated as Lloyd, he finds himself in a position where he is gifted a system, which keeps alluding to a mystery goal of his, a mystery wish or dream, being, hey, you are here to fulfill your wish. And we don't really know what that wish is, and neither does Kim Soo-ho for all of the story pretty much. So basically, using this system, he is trying to live life lazily and as a noble. And, well, he does that through a pretty complex series of actions and a character identity itself, where he is kind of evil, but also a force of good. And it's mostly because he is evil due to the fact that he is sort of in this position where he is doing things that are kind of morally questionable, but at the same time, the method of doing it is well within modern standards and being pretty okay or chill. He's actually seemingly a good guy, but he just extorts people, except he doesn't. He's just profiting. And also just is an absolute pain to anybody who would antagonize him, thanks to his own abilities as well as those of Javier, his loyal butler, who used to hate him and is also kind of conflicted. Is he a good guy now or what? What's going on there? So that's Lloyd. Now let's talk about, like I did in the other story, in the other WebStory Wednesday about Villainess Turns the Hourglass, what's so great about Greatest Estate Developer? And for that, I have to say these little guys right here. Look at how cute they are. Look at them. They're all like a squad next to each other, determined to do whatever they are collectively as a team ready, preparing themselves. And they're so cute. Like they have like plot relevance, they have their time to shine, and they're just adorable little guys. And I think their relationship with Lloyd is very cool. That's it. That's all there is to Greatest Estate Developer. You don't want to read for anything else. No, I'm joking. I put a lot of joke slides in today. I'm trying it out. So, what's so great about the Greatest Estate Developer for real? I would have to say, one, the art. As you may have seen if you were watching from the beginning, the slides of Lloyd's amazing expressions. The art is fantastic. It does such a great job at really punching down the comedy while being detailed enough to really catch emotions in a comedic way, but also really set the tone for when things get serious or there's a cool scene happening. And I think that kind of duality is always what makes a comedy adventure type of story so great. It's just the art being able to match up to it and really help set the tone to really emphasize those tones and story beats. And as I've been saying constantly, it plays into the comedy, which is another great part about Greatest Estate Developer. Greatest Estate Developer is by far one of the funniest stories I've read in the recent years, just because it does comedy so well with the way the expressions are done, the way the characters develop, the way running gags or visual gags will be reused. It is just a very pleasant journey and adventure to go through and experience. And it's really something that doesn't overshadow the serious beats or tones of the story when it gets to those. And this plays a part into the fact that the story also does character growth amazingly. Lloyd and Javier and a lot of other characters have these moments of serious growth and advancement in their own lives. The way they approach things just becomes so much better as time passes, where Lloyd realizing that he cares a lot more than others do, and others starting to realize that he cares as well, despite the fact that he always tries to come across as someone who is only out for his own selfish interests, right? And I think that the character growth is an amazing journey to follow, and while it's not the main thing, it's a very pleasant thing to experience as we go through the story. In addition to that, I think that overall, despite the comedy and despite the art and despite the memes that you may see about this story, another great thing is really reaching past the cover. It's like that classic saying, don't judge a book by its cover, right? And I think that overall, Greatest Estate Developer is one of the greatest examples of that in terms of storytelling. It has this kind of comedic and lighthearted feel, but you can't judge it solely by that, because when you go in and dive in and experience this world, this comedy, the art, and the people in it and the actions that they take, you start to realize that there's so much more to it, that it's genuinely a beautiful world. And that's what's amazing and crazy about the story to me, that I wish people talked about more, is that it's not just this comedy with memes and absurd expressions. It's really an interesting plot and world that kind of makes you find yourself like 10 feet deep into the water of the ocean. And you don't even want to escape because it's just such an amazing world. Like you're in the depths and realizing that underneath the surface was just this amazing landscape, this amazing depth that you didn't realize was there until you really dove into it. So yeah, and I think I'd have to say, in addition to all of this, that there's just a lot to this world that's just so good for various reasons. And even though the world is built so funny, everything is surprisingly well thought out. And just a few examples of this are in the way that the world and the people in it kind of act towards Lloyd and what he does, as well as in general how they just exist. One of the examples of this is Lloyd just converting people left and right to his cause, whether it be people who doubted him, people who believed he was just scum, and him making them learn to trust him, despite maybe not them thinking that he's such a great person. And the world really shines in sort of the way it approaches this classic fantasy, right? And the biggest examples of this are the middle and the right picture, which is the elves and the orcs. Because the elves are made to be so considerate of nature and plant life that they just absolutely only eat meat and refuse to touch or even injure or like slightly blemish a plant and wildlife, like trees, or like little like grasses or like sprouts. They just try to keep them alive, and so they love meat. And it's so funny because it takes this common perception of elves and twists it in a way that you don't really get to see in a lot of other like media. And I think I love that it doesn't just bog itself down to a pigeonhole of these fantasy stereotypes and archetypes, right? And instead makes it into a pigeonholed other version that's just so much funnier. And the same can be said about the orcs, because the orcs are not completely unintelligent. And, well, I mean, they are unintelligent, but not completely. And the way they act is that they are simply doing it for the gains and are just a friggin' muscle-obsessed clan of a race. And it's so fun watching them. And there's more to the world, too, that I haven't gotten to. But I think finding out more about this world and learning about it and truly understanding that this storytelling and writing about what this world is like is just absolutely amazing and funny in the best way possible. That I think it just makes it shine in a world building way that we don't really think of right away, where it's like, how do we make a funny world? Because this story and the writers who are behind it just did amazing implementing that. So next up, we're gonna talk about some notes. Again, Greatest Estate Developer has a very fun plot, but kind of like other stories of this sort of lighthearted nature, it's not going to be this crazy, like insane story of, oh, there's like 5 enemies hidden behind each one, you know? Like, it's not an enemy of the week, or like there's like a complicated conspiracy. It's just Lloyd going through the events of the story, trying his best to live his lazy life. And I think that is both its strength and also its downside. It's going to be a lot more simpler. It's going to be a lot more focused on just the comedy, but the plot is pretty good. I mean, I enjoyed it a lot. But it is, again, a very casual read, just to not get your hopes too high. But overall, I can't find myself having any big complaints or anything like that to like say that I need to ground your expectations too hard, but just know it's a lighthearted read. It's a very fun and adventurous read, but it's very, very, I guess, gripping once you kind of dive into it. But overall, nothing to really ground your expectations for. The story's still going, but we'll have to see how it ends, right? So, but to talk more about the art and kind of the way the comedy goes, here are some snippets of Lloyd's extreme expressions, which are a meme of the community as a whole. And one of the funniest parts of the story is Lloyd's appearance in general. And I think that it's a thrilling adventure just to see all of these different expressions come into play, and would highly recommend just reading through it and looking for them. And yeah, I'm gonna be honest, I forgot what else I put on the slides. Oh, okay, there you go. Things I personally adore. In terms of what I adore, I mean, I think that I've already kind of said a lot, but I think that one of the big things is, again, Lloyd's two faces. Lloyd has two different types of sort of general like modes. One mode is his make money, live lazily life, kind of like face. He focuses heavily on just, I need to make money. I need to take care of my estate. I need to take care of my family. I need to make it so I can live lazily, play, have fun, enjoy my life. But he has another side that's a lot more serious, that is genuinely scared about everything that's happening, all of the struggles that he's going through, all the problems that keep arising. And overall, you do find that as you read through that Lloyd does care. He just has to hide it behind a mask of bravado because he doesn't want to seem like he cares. He doesn't want to create this bond where he is going to seem invested in people and necessarily make it seem like, oh, like I'm doing this for you as well as me. He has this mask of bravado because I think at the end of the day, he has a lot on his plate. And I think that Lloyd's concern and his passion, or like kind of pragmatic like approach to things, or practical approach to things, is very different. And he makes sure not to bleed the two together in fear of one ruining the other. Another thing that I personally adore is on the other side of things, where things get really bizarre. I will not hold back. It gets crazy. Like sometimes he just does things and I'm like, what the hell is happening? And it's wonderful, it's great, and that's a part of the charm of Greatest Estate Developer. It's the reason why the art works, the comedy works, and just how amazingly fun this story can be. Gets to really shine. But going back to another serious part of the story that I really like, because I do like the more serious aspects, because the comedy I can only say so much about. It's just like, it made me laugh, what else can I say? But the last part is the supporting cast. The supporting cast is by far one of my favorites to kind of watch, because as we watch Lloyd grow, so do these other characters. As Lloyd has gone from being absolute drunken scum to doing so much, transforming the estate, helping the kingdom, going afar and saving lands, and doing so much more than he ever used to. And we're starting off with nothing, but they're starting off with the opposite, right? And they're growing to kind of respect him while we are learning to love him. And I think that the supporting cast and their development in moving with Lloyd and his journey is just an absolute blast, and so fun to watch their interactions with Lloyd. Because Lloyd isn't just the one character, and even though he acts very independently, he is living his best life, and I think it's really fun to watch that. And how it affects the supporting cast as well. So, yeah. You should read this now. Someone cool named Paji said this, so I guess you must, right? Hey, look, that's me. I guess I'm cool, guys. Oh god, I'm gonna stop running this bit after this week. Next week we'll have a different bit maybe, but yeah, I think that's it. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the recommendation. I hope that it made sense. I hope that I got my honest thoughts. And if you have any questions that didn't get asked or answered, go ahead and drop them in the comments, and I will go ahead and make sure to write one out. So, and yeah, thank you very much.